Welcome to the People's Guild.
Each week we explore the Splinterland universe with guests from all across the mythical land of Pretoria.
Join us on our journey as we discuss the evolution of the game, the strategy, the lore, and the exciting path that lies ahead.
To support the People's Guild, make sure you subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts, and also check us out on PeakD, YouTube, and Twitter.
Send your questions, suggestions, and epic battles in our comments through Twitter or email at thepeoplesguildspl@gmail.com. We'll feature the best in our episodes and maybe airdrop you some prizes.
Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the show.
Welcome back to the People's Guild. Another week, another episode, another wonderful guest. This week we've got coming in from Melbourne, Australia. He is widely regarded as one of the key contributors to due diligence whenever, we've got proposals coming into the Splinterlands ecosystem. And he's one of the bigger whales. He's a self-made whale. I think he ate a lot of plankton on his way up from the bottom. And we've heard through the grapevine that he's a self-made man. He's one of the founders over at Aqualis. Recently acquired a cool product. We're hoping to hear the pitch here on the People's Guild for you guys, and we're happy to present this conversation to you. We've got Cryptoeater, aka Simon. Welcome to the show, Simon. Thank you for taking time to hop on with us, man.
Yeah, no worries, Ben. Great to be here. I've heard a lot of great things about this podcast, so yeah, it's actually quite an honor to be here.
Yeah, man, really glad to have you. We feel really lucky to have you. A lot of the whales we talk to are older, I'll say, more distinguished gentlemen. Are you 22, is it?
Well, that's a good guess. I'm actually 23. Yeah.
You're 23 now. Okay. All right, there you go. So yeah, man, I mean, you're pretty young. You're just over like half my age. So I just want to hear your story. Like how I saw that you got in Peak D, you kind of got back into this, when you're about 17, 18. At that age, and you kind of like taken off with this so much, man. It's really impressive. So kind of what got you into crypto to begin with?
Yeah, no, well, great question. So I guess to be honest, when I first started getting into crypto, it was from a friend of mine in physics class. He kept telling me about, he just kept talking about Bitcoin and how, like, I don't know, like it was just like how it's always like keeps going up. And then I don't know, when I was around 5,000 US back in 2017, I'm like, screw it, I'll buy some. But I don't know if you guys remember back then, like any bit of news, like it was like, oh, China banned crypto, bam, everything fell like 40%. So that's when I got in, was right before it like crashed, like 40%. But I just kept like buying Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever. It wasn't until maybe 2018, or late 2017 that I discovered Steam. And yeah, no, I mean, I didn't, like, as you mentioned, like I didn't have like a lot of funds back then, so I tried to make some money by writing articles. I tried to, I guess, just get involved with the community. And one thing that I noticed about the Steam blockchain and how it worked was that it was a very good candidate for gaming, in my opinion, especially because of the low blockchain, with no blockchain fees, very fast blockchain, and the hypothetical like maximum TPS was very high. It was a much better candidate than, I guess, Ethereum back then. So when Steam Monsters finally came out in, I think, May 2018, and I saw it, I guess I just couldn't help myself but jump in. I've always been very passionate about gaming as well. So it seemed like the perfect match for me. I mean, on a bit of a tangent, like, even back when I used to play like World of Warcraft with my brother and whatnot, like he would be going out in raids and I'd just be like, I don't know, crafting and making money in the auction house. And maybe like a month later, I'd always have more gold than him. So, I feel like auction houses and like markets, like especially in games, has always kind of been like my niche. I don't know like how, like, I was like probably like 8 or 9 years old back then, but I just really loved like trading. So yeah, when this game came out, I was like, wow, I could potentially make real money. Like I couldn't help but like get involved. And since then I've been, I guess, just a trader. my, I guess, core business model back then was just buying lots of stuff in bulk, hence the plankton eating, I guess. But yeah, anytime people wanted to quit, I was like, yeah, I'll buy all your stuff, give me a price, and then whatever price they give me, I'll try to negotiate it down a little bit, and then try to sell it off bit by bit. And that's really how I built my collection over the years. It's just through that kind of bulk trading. And yeah, that's kind of like how I got involved in the whole crypto scene.
Oh man, well, yeah, I'm curious. We've had a couple of guys like Hep just referenced distinguished gentlemen guests of recent episodes, and yeah, it's not often that Hep and I are clearly the oldest guys in the room, but here we are. Yeah, so Simon, I'm curious.
Jangles, you're younger than me, so I guess I am now the oldest guy in the room too. Yeah,
you are the distinguished gentleman.
Hep. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, we had a couple of those guys on, and they referenced a very key kind of turning point in Splinterlands being the J6969 saga. Yes. We spoke with Aggie about that a few episodes back as well. Is that something that is kind of the consensus, I guess, watershed moment for Splinterlands? It was essentially make or break, and is that where you kind of came up on a lot of your assets?
Yeah, well, actually, I'll be honest with you. I was very close with him personally. So Jay and I, like we I guess spoke a lot. Sometimes like for hours. He was a very interesting guy, I'll be honest with you, very unique. So he had a lot of stories, and being the kind of like Bitcoin billionaire kind of guy that he is, he had a lot of very wild and interesting stories. So like the whole saga at the time was very, like, for me, a bit of like a conflict of interest. He was suing Splinterlands. I was friends with him. I was like, had a lot of assets in Splinterlands, but at the time I had also been the one who sold a lot of the cards to him at the start. So I was like, he was quite, he was very confident he was going to win. Let's say that. And I was personally, honestly, quite worried, because I was thinking, like, a billionaire, like, a supposed billionaire, versus a tiny game like Splinterlands, right? Because back then we were tiny, like our market cap was like what, like 1 million or 2 million or something. I was honestly very worried. I didn't pick up all that many assets during that period. I actually, because I was like, because I already had I guess, life-changing amount of money in the game, even back then. I kind of like tried to not, like, I was very tempted to sell. I'll be honest with you. I was very tempted to just be one of the, like, there was a lot of whales who sold everything and left. I was very leaning on that boat. The only reason I decided not to was purely because of Matt. Or Yabat Matt, to be more specific, as there are a lot of Matts. I trusted in Matt. I trusted in his vision. Matt has, throughout the years, we've also had I guess, a personal relationship. He's helped me a lot. He was actually, a bit later on, he was actually a reference to one, because I've been like a bit of an advisor for pretty much since the start. Like, one of the reasons I started really getting into Splinterlands was because I found the founders, Aggie, Matt. Both of those people were very like in tune with the community. I remember giving them like quality of life suggestions, and just suggestions in general. Some of them they would implement and give me, like, I don't know, 5 alpha packs free, which is like $10 back then. But for me, I was like, it wasn't like a monetary thing. It just felt really good to be appreciated. And that's what really got me stuck, in the community, in the game, and just trusting the founders. But in terms of him being a kind of turning point, I do believe that, like, I'll be honest, like, I don't think it's as pivotal as people make it out to be. I think that, with or without him in the game, people would have bought, would have sold, etc. Of course, like, he caused the crash. Like, maybe it wasn't really a crash. Like, I think the market cap went down like 30-40%, which for a small cap is not even that bad. But yeah, like, in terms of how pivotal, like, his, like, the ultimate turning point, in my opinion, was the release of SPS. That I think was what really turned the game around. I had like back then, like, as I don't know if you guys have interviewed Neil, but I know he's like highly regarded as like the king of spreadsheets. But no, like back then, like with the SPS release, I had all my spreadsheets as well. Did the maths. I was like, it's impossible for like DECs to go down basically, or like it's like DECs have to go up. But that was kind of the general consensus I had. Um, and yeah, like I mean, I sold a lot of my assets to DEC. Regrettably, I think I sold a max level gold foil Zaku for like 1K or like 1.1K. And I still get people laughing at me because of that. But like little do they know, I put it into DEC and DEC ended up going up like 20x while giving like insane interest because of the SPS airdrop. So I don't know, like it was just a like SPS to me, like that was the ultimate turning point. Like it really elevated the game from just like a random game where you can earn from to something with like an actual like actual tokenomics and actual like economy. And yeah, like obviously DEC is like because the old DEC algorithm was that the more DEC, so the higher the DEC peg was, the more that gets printed. So obviously when it went like I think it was like 12, 13x above peg, it went from like 50% under peg to like 12x above peg or something crazy like that. So during that period, of course, it was printing like crazy, like it was printing 12x more than usual, and which is ultimately what like we're trying to combat nowadays. With the massive DEC supply, we're trying to burn that down again. I guess that's just one of the side effects of it. But yeah, no, like overall, like sorry to be always go on these little tangents. Overall, J6969, not like a if we lost, I think that would have been a turning point because we'd probably be gone if we did lose. But since we didn't lose, and since all that really happened was he came, he left, it's not massive. Like his bots, etc. Like nothing really came of it. There were, yeah, I don't think it was a massive impact to be honest. I think SPS was the main one.
Man, great story, and tangents welcome. The more tangents, the merrier, man. We embrace the tangent and the errant path here as much as possible. Man, what is it like, being a young little whippersnapper of 23 years old? What is it like talking to your buddies, talking to your parents, talking to your family? Like, you made life-changing wealth through a video game. Are you like the Asian superstar idol down in Melbourne, man? Like, are all your friends like, yeah, I'm gonna keep playing video games. This could happen to me too. What is that like?
Yeah, mate. Well, good question. I mean, honestly, like I try to stay like down to earth. I also try to keep everything a bit low key. So like to my parents, they're just like, catch out by land. Um, that's
And
literally
not
pretty
not
much.
Pretoria,
Not
right?
Pretoria land,
Exactly,
land.
exactly. The yeah, say sell your Pretoria land and buy a farm. I don't know. So yeah, yeah, that's that. I guess like one of the main reasons I got into crypto to begin with was because of like like family. We've always been like, I guess like not like really like poor or anything, but being like middle class-ish. With like money has always been an issue. And coming from like single parent family, single parent raising two, like, and my mom had me rather late. She was like 38. So like I realized like if I do like the corporate grind, like go into I don't know like one of the big four accounting firms and then slowly grind up to middle management. It's going to take me like, I don't know, 10 years at least before I have any noticeable wealth. So I had to kind of like go like all or nothing, which was actually one of the reasons I started in crypto because I'm like this, because it was kind of like a decision, right? Do I start playing around with penny stocks or crypto? Because I know like I had to do something that was incredibly high risk because it's like when you're like 17, 18, right? You don't have responsibilities. Like I don't know, like I had $2,000 I saved up from, I don't know, birthdays, Chinese New Year's, and cleaning. So I used to, because my mom's a cleaner, I used to go cleaning with her like before school or something. And yeah, like I was like, if I lose 2,000, I can make that back like really easily. But if it actually becomes something, then that's because that's pretty much how much I started with in crypto back in 2017. So yeah, like that's another tangent to be honest, but that's kind of like that's like the family side. In terms of like friends and stuff, I don't know. I mean, they'll probably listen to this podcast. They can give a better understanding of like what it's like. But to be honest, it's like at the start there was a bit of hype, but after like a year or two, no one really cares. I am still who I am. I don't think I've really changed. I am still incredibly stingy, by the way. Like I don't spend like any extra money on anything I don't need to. Even with deals, sometimes I'll negotiate over like a dollar difference because it's like I don't know. Like I'm not. I guess personally, even like myself, I'm not used to having like wealth, so I don't really like. I'm trying my best, I guess, to maintain it. So yeah, I don't know if that really answers your question, but honestly, there's not too much like as you say, am I like the like I don't know like wonder Asian kid whatever like not really like no one really cares. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that's really interesting. Again, yeah, feel free to go on tangents. No one listens to this podcast to hear us talk. Or everybody wants to hear. We try to get the interesting guests on, so we don't really have to do much work. That's our secret.
Fair enough.
But yeah, I'm curious to know. Like, did you think you made sort of the bulk of those funds through Hive and Splinterlands, or through other crypto investments? Yeah, it was through Hive and Splinterlands.
Definitely through Splinterlands. So like I mean I've also invested in a lot of other stuff, of course. During the bull market, everything was going up. I actually missed out on the DeFi summer because I had all my funds in Splinterlands. I was very, I guess, like opportunity cost, right? I've always been bullish on Splinterlands. But I guess after Splinterlands went up after the DeFi kind of like massive boom, yield farming, all that. That's when I really got into DeFi. It was like afterwards. Before that, I pretty much like only had money in Splinterlands. So the only source of making money would have been from Splinterlands. But I did do a lot of like, I guess like arbitrage back then. Like, actually, tell you a funny story. Like this was back when I used to still work in a bank. So I used to work in a bank in a call center. And this was during COVID. We were working from home. And so this was when SPS was just starting to like, it was just coming out. And we had like the DEC liquidity pools, right, on like on Uniswap V2 and also on PancakeSwap. So this was on Ethereum and BSC. I remember there was like, because I'd be working from home, I'd have like all the charts open on my computer, just in case something happens. And I see like a massive green candle. Someone had bought like, I think like a couple $100,000 worth of DEC on Ethereum. But, of course, the price on Hive Engine and the price on PancakeSwap were still the same as before. So I'm like, holy crap, holy crap. I was in the middle of a call at the time. I'm like, oh, sorry, there's some system issues at the moment. Do you mind if I place you on a quick hold? And the customer's like, yeah, sure, go for it. And then I'm like, okay, got to do this. And I'm just like cycling my funds around, like moving it onto Ethereum, selling it, moving it onto Binance, and then from Binance Smart Chain, buying it, moving it in game, then back on Ethereum, just keep chaining it. I think I put the customer on hold for like 10, 15 minutes. And when I remember that I still have a customer on hold, I'm like, holy crap. And then I'll go back to her. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, it's just, COVID, working from home, always get these system issues. And she's like, oh, don't worry about it. I'm also working from home. Oh, thank God I had a really sweet customer. Otherwise, it would be really bad. But that was actually like, that was like the first real, like, I guess money I made. That was, I think, about like 20 grand USD in the matter of like 10 minutes through arbitrage. That was like, I guess, kind of like a turning point for me personally. That was when I decided, okay, like, what am I doing? Like answering calls still, like, yeah, right. I'm just gonna like, I just want to quit now. Like, but then, working was actually like, people think call center, they think like really like, depressed office lighting, but we had like a really nice office. We like, there was really nice views and everyone's really nice. Everyone's in like, mid-20s, and my manager was in like, I don't know, late 20s. So it was a really fun environment. I actually really, really enjoyed my job. So quitting was actually, I guess, a bit hard. But I guess it was kind of like too much stuff going on at the time anyway. So quitting was a good option. Yeah, no, I think that was kind of like where I made my first real money. And after that, yeah, a lot of it came from like the Hive ecosystem. Like, admittedly, I guess technically this came from Ethereum, like the Ethereum blockchain, but obviously it's all connected to Splinterlands. Yeah.
That's
Oh
amazing,
man.
man. I'm surprised there weren't, like, do you think there
Bots?
were just not bots at the time? Like,
That's the thing.
taking care of that arbitrage. Like, you think you'd hear like, how does a person able to do that? You think the bots now are just set up to just take that out
Exactly.
right
Like,
away, right?
the reason I'm comfortable sharing the story now is because I know bots are taking care of it. There's no more opportunities for us. Back then, I had to keep that story, just to me, purely because, like, if I told people, obviously they're going to do the same thing. So yeah, like, I mean, back then, like, it was. I don't know how it works, because I mean, I have a computer science and commerce degree, but I have no idea how anything works. Um, so like I assume like it's hard to, because a part of that process for arbitrage is transferring from the like Binance Smart Chain to in-game to Ethereum. I assume there's a little bit of complexity there to creating a bot, and maybe people just couldn't have been like, maybe people just wasn't bothered yet to do it. And yeah, back then, like before the SPS boom, we were a very small community anyway. Like, so yeah, it's yeah, I assume there just weren't any bots yet to be like at the time. Obviously now there are like heaps of bots doing everything, like from arbitraging like the Hive engine pool, like the tribal dex pools, to like all the different pools between all the different blockchains. So I don't even bother looking at it anymore. But I guess one thing to your viewers, during the massive Hive pumps, there is still definitely arbitrage opportunities. The bots aren't fast enough. They also don't move around enough liquidity. So yeah, no, there's definitely still opportunities there for manual arbitrages, but there are risks, of course, like because in Australia, Binance, they don't let you short anymore. Ideally, what you'll do is you can actually sell your SPS or DECs into Hive. Before you receive the Hive on Binance, what you want to do is you want to short Hive using margin. So you get the guaranteed price, and then while you're waiting for everything to transfer to Binance, you can actually buy whatever you sold on BSC. You can buy back the DEC or SPS, and then make the guaranteed profit. And then once you actually receive the Hive, you can basically just pay back what you shorted. So that's ideal. But in Binance, in Australia, Binance removed their margin trading for Australians, so I can't do that. But yeah.
Man, I love the banking story. And to be fair, you didn't specify in which system the issues were happening. So you weren't lying. You didn't send her on a wild goose chase. You were telling the truth. How shortly?
In case my boss is listening.
Yeah, there you go. How shortly after that occurrence did you said that kind of in that moment you realized, wow, I've got maybe perhaps too many irons in the fire. I should focus fire my stuff on, X, Y, and Z. How shortly after that instance did you kind of make the full decision and pull the trigger on going full-time Cryptoeater?
Well, actually, I guess at the time I was still studying at uni. I was like underloading, so basically doing part-time uni. But I also was doing another online short course, kind of like a fintech certificate at the time. So I had uni, I had the certificate thing going on, which was like meant to be about 20 to 30 hours a week. Uni was meant to be like, I don't know, like 20 hours a week, but obviously no one actually spends that long on uni. And I was also doing I was still working part-time. So I think I was doing 28 hours back then. And doing all this like crypto stuff was like pretty much a full-time job for me, like 30, 40 hours. If you add up all the hours, there aren't that many hours left in a week. So it was a bit like overloaded, and I realized I had to kind of take one away. At that point was when I decided, like, once I get to a breaking point, my job would be the first one to go. It wasn't actually until, honestly, like timeline wise, I can't remember fully, but probably like a couple months later that I told my boss like exactly what was going on. He basically like he was really understanding. He basically said that he's happy to give me like a career break, basically. So 6 months where I can just take indefinite time off for up to 6 months. And 6 months later, once I finish with my online course, once uni's back on holidays, he said I can come back if I want, or if I want to quit, I can quit. So I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a really good idea. So 6 months later was when I finally decided, okay, like that was after SPS and everything was already like, in the sky, like to the moon, like whatever you want to call it. So that was when I decided, okay, I probably don't want to go back to work anymore. Yeah.
Beautiful, man. What a great realization, and good for you for man, I couldn't imagine having that conversation back when I was working in the States with my boss. Like, hey, I've got this crypto venture kind of happening on the side. I want to kind of put my career on hold for a little bit. What are my options? I would have been showed the door very, very, very quickly. I don't think most American companies would not be understanding to the point of giving 6 months of essentially sabbatical, a crypto sabbatical.
Yeah. Basically, I mean, I was incredibly touched because my boss was very nice. Like he was probably like, I mean, like, yeah, like even when I was working there, like everything was very flexible since I had uni. I had to be very like flexible with my time. Since it's a call center, they can't really, like, there's no really storage of work, right? Like, you have to be there when a customer calls. So I got moved into like more admin type roles, replying emails and stuff, which was honestly very boring, but it gave me flexibility. And in terms of like working time and all that, I don't know. I was very lucky. My first job was like a very like very flexible. It suited my kind of like position at the time. So yeah, no, it was very, very lucky.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just kind of wondering. So, after the market starts to go up in Splinterlands and you start to get that boom cycle. You said you're a passionate gamer as well. So, what's the friction like for you where you're like, well, I have, I like this game, I like playing with these cards, but now these cards are starting to be worth more and more money. Where's the line with you? Or are you kind of like, well, no, I can always did you have that foresight that, what, even if I can take profits now, buy cards back later? Or kind of what was that calculus for you to sell cards into DEC, like you said earlier?
Yeah, okay. Well, I guess for a bit of context, I have like a lot of copies of like all the cards. So that was, I guess, made it a bit easier. The second thing is I've actually never really played this game. I'm a passionate gamer, yes. I played Hearthstone a lot, but I mean, I guess, to people listening, don't hurt me, but I never found Splinterlands that fun. Like, I grinded for a bit. And then I just get bored, I guess. So the only thing, I mean, nowadays I find it quite fun is because, we have like, a bunch of mates, like we go on Discord or whatnot. Sometimes we do our brawls together. So we have like a couple people watching the stream while the other person submits to teams. And that's a good, like, kind of like communal feel when we're doing our brawls. That's quite interesting and fun. But in terms of actual gameplay, like I've never actually gotten like addicted. So for me, selling cards in terms of that, it wasn't that much of an issue. The main problem I had was, I guess, an emotional attachment to my cards because I've had these for like, I don't know, 3-4 years. I've had this specific card for 3-4 years. So I know the story behind this card. I got it from whoever. I like there was back in like the way, way, way old school days. Probably only a very small handful of listeners might know a user called Patalincho. So she was an incredibly like lucky player. So like she had like I think like 7 or 8 gold foil legendary alpha cards after opening like I don't know like 700 packs or something crazy like that. I opened 1,600 like for a bit of context, I opened 1,600 packs before my first gold foil legendary. So I don't know if I'm just incredibly unlucky, or getting like 7 in 700 is just like insane. By the way, it is insane. Um, but yeah, no, like a lot of my cards I bought from her in bulk because when she left, she started like her own crypto exchange or something like that, and sold all her cards to fund it. Um, like I don't know, like all of those cards I just basically didn't sell for a few years, and when I finally started to sell those cards, I'm like, oh no, like these are like, because she kind of disappeared from the community. Her Discord went out inactive. I like to keep in touch with people. People haven't messaged like half a year. I'm like, oh yeah, what happened to that person? I just messaged and like, hey bro, how's it going? But I couldn't find her anymore. So yeah, no, like selling those cards were like an example, I guess. There's many other cards as well that were quite, I guess, like difficult to sell. Like my first gold foil legendary from Rewards, I got a Lord A. And I think that's like the only gold foil legendary I've ever gotten. Of course, minus sold down cards. I don't know if they really count. But selling that was very hard because I'm like, I earned this. But yeah, no, apart from that, like everything else was quite like easy. I never thought about it as I can buy it back cheaper. I always thought about it as, okay, if I sell this and everything keeps going up, I still have so much more. So I'll be fine. I'm basically deleveraging some risk here. Like it's the same as what I do when I trade. If things go up, I sell. Things go down, I buy back more. And I'm comfortable doing that because I only invest in things that I have confidence in. Like, don't get me wrong, I've been wrong before. I've, DCA'd into stuff that just kept going down, or just kept selling stuff that kept going up. But I feel like it's a good way to kind of like save mental. Like, I don't know if you guys do any like derivatives trading, but I find like whenever I do it, I can't sleep. Like I naturally wake up every hour or two to check the prices because I just can't fall asleep because I'm always worried. Like even if it's like a relatively small amount, like I have like a few $100s in the margin account and my position's like $5,000 or something. Like it's not like life changing if I lose it all, but like it's still like even over a few $100, like I just ruins my sleep. So I pretty much don't do any of that anymore. I only like just DCA into stuff I believe in, because even if it goes down, I'm like, yay, I get more of this. And if it goes up, I'm like, yay, I made money. So either way, it's like a win-win. And yeah, so that's kind of the emotional side. Like it was like relatively okay when it was going up. Didn't really think too much about it.
Man, great question, Happen, and great response, Simon. I appreciate the very practical, logical, level-headed approach, and trying to mitigate risk as much as possible, and then maintain that balance throughout your portfolio. It's really inspiring, Simon, to hear. You made heaps with Splinterlands and Hive and the ecosystem, and you're not walking away. Instead, you're doubling down. And we talked about this a little bit off air. Prior to hitting record on the episode, but you just recently acquired, or you're in the process of acquisition for the Layer 2 Labs monster market. Is that right? Would you mind telling us what was it in your mind that kind of triggered that this is where I should kind of burrow in a little bit further within the Splinterlands ecosystem, and this is the right move, this is the right time.
Yeah, well, great question there, actually. About doubling down, I've basically, I have weekly meetings with Matt. It used to be, I used to have like a agenda and all that with like specific talking nodes, and now it's kind of just gone down into like I just chat with him for an hour a week about like random stuff, Splinterlands related most of the time, but like that ultimately was one of the like is the biggest reason I've never considered selling all. I don't think I ever will. Is purely because of Matt, right? He's even before Splinterlands went up a lot. He changed my life. He was like, because the call center job, like it was relatively competitive. And I had no prior work experience. Matt was able to offer me like a reference. He said that I worked at Splinterlands, which like technically, like, I was an advisor. I helped like, a lot throughout, like including like tokenomics to like catching bugs. There were a lot of bugs back then. So, he gave me a good reference on that. And ultimately, like, they wouldn't even take me for an interview without a reference. So, I pretty much credit Matt to my first job, which was really helpful for me at the time. And of course, Splinterlands going up a lot, that's changed my life as well. As I mentioned, I sell on the way up, so I've cashed out a fair bit from Splinterlands. It's helped me, pay off some of my mom's mortgages. It's helped me buy some, real life assets. It's helped me basically put a decent sum into DeFi just to earn passive income from, which I have actually put a lot more back into Splinterlands. But anyway, yeah, it's just like I feel like it's already like quite a life-changing experience, and that's why I feel like I don't plan on selling everything. Why I've doubled down, or why I've actually chosen now as a time, is that, well, I've actually always wanted to have my own marketplace, but the cost of development was just not worth it. If you run the cash flow estimates compared to how much you need to invest into creating like a full market from scratch, also time commitment with working with a developer, finding a developer on Hive, which is not even that easy. I just thought like this is something I want, but it's not like a really it's not really like a feasible like venture, in like a fiscal venture, because it just doesn't really make sense. But when Chance was basically, I saw an announcement on his Discord that they're discontinuing Layer 2 Labs. So Layer 2 Labs is Chance's brand. So I basically messaged him immediately, like, hey mate, how much would you want for the marketplace component? And we negotiated like a pretty fair price. And in terms of I mean personally, I don't think I'm ever going to get it cheaper than this, because I don't see any of the other marketplaces saying we're going out of business. And in terms of development, it's significantly cheaper than finding a new developer to develop. And I thought it was a really good opportunity to basically add it onto Aqualis, which we can talk about it a bit later. But Aqualis is basically a new DeFi protocol that I've been working on. So yeah, no, we've basically just added the Chance's old marketplace. We've acquired that, rebranded it, chucked it into our suite of products. And yeah, no, now I guess is as good a time as ever, with the proposal that I put through that reduces marketplace income by 20%. I'm pretty sure that's here to stay. I don't think anyone's ever gonna, not ever, but I don't think anyone's gonna overturn that in the short run. And yeah, I guess it's just an opportunity right now, to get a cheap marketplace. There wasn't too much thought into why now, why not later. I just don't think we're going to see another opportunity to get a cheap marketplace. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, it's cool to hear that you're kind of fulfilling your dream. You mentioned earlier playing World of Warcraft. You weren't interested in raids. You weren't interested in battles. You were, stuck nose to the grindstone in the workshop and handling stuff in the auction house. And here you are coming to, it's coming full circle with the Layer 2 Labs marketplace. Us as the community, Simon, what do we keep a lookout for? I'm sure you'll put an announcement. We'll see something on Peaked or Peak D, kind of announcing. You mentioned rebranding. Are we getting? Is it an Aqualis marketplace? What's going to be the names to look out for? And do you have a potential ETA?
Yeah. So at this stage, we've got our marketplace audited by the Splinterlands team, so they've listed our market. For those who aren't really aware, to actually receive fees as a marketplace, Splinterlands has to audit you to make sure you're a legitimate marketplace. Otherwise, anyone can just put their account as the fee-bearing account and then just get 4% off all the cards. So what the Splinterlands did is that if you put a name in as the marketplace that isn't listed, it just defaults back to Steam Monsters. So Splinterlands, it just defaults back to the Splinterlands marketplace. So we've recently gotten that done. This morning, actually, we've updated the backend database to reflect all that. We also offer cashbacks. So we plan to offer the highest cashbacks in the current market of 70%. And something else that's quite unique to the Aqualis market is that we will actually plan at this stage to keep everything within the Splinterlands ecosystem. So, we pay for our infrastructure, like, web server hosting, et cetera, like with a different side of the business. The Splinterland side, what we can do with that, like, any revenue we get in terms of DEC, we plan to basically pair that with SPS. We may not have enough SPS, so we may sell a little bit of DEC to get SPS. But no matter, I guess, like, whatever happens with that, we do plan on keeping 100% of the revenue we earn within the Splinterlands ecosystem. So there won't actually be any real sell pressure in terms of Splinterlands assets. Since whatever we sell, we're just going to be buying back another Splinterlands asset. And we just plan to add all of that into the liquidity pools on Hive Engine. And in terms of announcements, yeah, we'll definitely be making an announcement probably this week. We've actually got everything set up as of literally like 2 hours ago. So we're pretty much ready to go live. I'm just going to be doing a little bit of quick testing myself, and then I'm going to finish off the article I've been writing. And then we'll release everything. I'll probably do a little bit of a marketing push in terms of, I don't even know, like how to market a Hive app, to be honest. Just go on Mavs chat and just like chill it. I don't know if people will like that, but yeah, like, gonna try to do a bit of promotion. We're gonna get our name added onto the Splinterlands website. I think starting from next week, next patch, we should have the Aqualis market added as a third-party market on the market page. But yeah, that's like in terms of time frame, we're hoping to get that launched like publicly probably today. In terms of like it already works. Like if you just go onto aqualis.io, which is our homepage, you can launch the Splinterlands Market app via our launch apps button, and you can already start using it. But just disclaimer, we haven't actually done any testing on it. So if you magically lose all your funds, not on us yet. But yeah, that's kind of what we're doing.
Nice. Yeah. Any plans to go on like a town hall or the town square meetings to kind of market it a little bit? That's probably a good avenue as well.
Yeah, I was thinking that, but I don't know how, like, I've been on one of those to market Aqualis before, and it was honestly quite successful since we have quite, like, we have the Aqualis Guild, we have quite a big, like, footprint, I guess, in the Splinterlands ecosystem. We were also hosting some tournaments back then, periodically. But yeah, no, like in terms of town hall, I might speak to Agrod about it again to see if we can. I'm not too sure if they will, because it's like, promoting a marketplace, and we don't really, honestly, we don't really offer anything all that like innovative. It's just like a pretty bare bones marketplace that offers the maximum cashback. That's our unique selling point, I guess. And of course, the 100% of assets is kept within the ecosystem. That's, I guess, our second selling point, which I guess, come to think of it, might be a good reason to have us on town hall. So yeah, I'll speak to Matt about it or Aggie about it. And yeah, you might see me there in a week or two.
Sweet.
Talk yourself into it.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about Aqualis prior to hopping on here, and you mentioned that Aqualis operates within EVM blockchains. Is the Aqualis marketplace being connected with Aqualis? Does that have any implications for being able to purchase or acquire Splinterlands assets through currency outside of DEC or credits?
So not at the moment. At the moment, we are still working on our, I guess, like core products. I gave a bit of an elevator pitch before that ended up, as Ben said, elevator for Taipei 101. But I'll try to keep it shorter. It's basically like for Aqualis, our core like business model is really just enhanced capital efficiency on EVM chains. For those of you that are involved in DeFi, you'll know that you can deposit funds on AMMs, like liquidity pools for trading. You can also deposit funds on lending protocols. However, that presents an opportunity cost, right? You can only deposit it on an AMM or a lending protocol. What Aqualis does is basically we connect these different liquidity pools with our interoperable liquidity pool. And we have an on-chain algorithm that basically allows for assets to be dynamically allocated between these pools. So traders can basically deposit in one place. And they'll be able to earn rewards from a multitude of different features. So at the moment, we have trading, lending, and flash loans enabled. We also plan on working with third parties to basically use their protocols to earn revenue in addition to what we already have, if there's additional liquidity available in our pools. What we've created with the trading side is actually very similar to Uniswap V3. If any of you guys use that, it's basically a concentrated liquidity model, but instead of allowing users to choose where to concentrate liquidity, that liquidity is actually a parameter that is set within the pool. So depositors only need to deposit; they don't have to make any decision making. It's like as easy as possible. And we actually started working on this concentrated liquidity model pretty much a year before Uniswap V3 came out. And yeah, I mean, that's basically our core business model there. We've also been working on a lot of peripheral products. We have a trustless peer-to-peer smart contract, so people can trade assets peer-to-peer without a middleman. You can send people a request via our smart contracts, and then they can accept, counteroffer, whatever. Once they accept it, both users will need to deposit the relevant funds before either user can withdraw their part. And we've also got a vesting as a service smart contract. So if any other third-party projects have a vesting kind of need, we can fulfill that. We can put in their parameters, and that's pretty much what Aqualis aims to do. We haven't actually done we don't have any sort of fund management, if that makes sense. For us to actually be able to accept different currencies, we would need either ourselves or a third party to convert those other external currencies like Bitcoin or Ethereum into either credits or DECs, since the Splinterlands markets only accept those. And at this stage, we don't really plan on working with that, because that would to do it legally, we would require licensing. And I guess we just don't have those a budget for that at the moment. And yeah, before we started recording, and during my elevator pitch, Ben and Hep were saying it sounded like I had this very well rehearsed. And I guess that's no coincidence. We're actually doing a seed sale round at the moment. Been speaking to a few VCs, some of which Matt actually introduced us to. So yeah, very, very fundraising mode at the moment.
Yeah. How much of that is live now, or are we pre-launch there, or some of this has launched already?
Yeah, so everything I've mentioned so far, including our staking as well. So our staking is a little bit different. Our staking is time weighted. So, you can stake for 5 weeks or 2 years, anything between that. The longer you stake for, the more we call it Aqualis power you have. That basically just means you get more rewards, you get more voting power within the DAO. So all of that is live in terms of it's working. It's not live on the mainnet. We don't have a working a go live product, but everything I've mentioned is fully developed. It's in internal testing, and we plan to launch that into beta testing. All of that has actually been, fully, all the expenses have been fully bootstrapped by the founders, which are myself and Harold. So Harold is actually someone I met in the the fintech course I mentioned I was doing earlier, the online course. During the final presentations, I pretty much pitched Aqualis. And Harold was a guest listener, and we basically been working on it ever since. It's been about a year and a half. At this stage, we're basically doing a fundraising round to go live. We, forecast there to be quite significant expenditure for the auditing. So of course, we'll need to audit our smart contracts. We've already signed a contract for that, so we know exactly the costs. But the main thing is PR and marketing. I have no experience personally in terms of that. I have like a PR agency that we've been working with, actually a couple PR agencies, but it's expensive. Like, so especially with all the meme coins out there. Like, to put into context, I spoke to one of my other friends who's a founder of his own project, and they pay for influencers. To put, like, they say that like a pretty small influencer that's like, of course you need to get to a certain threshold to call yourself an influencer, but they said the cheapest videos are like 3,000 each, and some of the bigger influencers charge 100,000 per 20-minute video, which is just like, that's pretty much like how much I've spent over the past year and a half on funding, like developing the whole protocol. I don't want to be spending that much on one video.
Sounds like
So,
you should
yeah.
get into the influencer game, maybe.
Yeah, right. That's great. I don't think, honestly, I don't think I have like the right persona to be an influencer. But if I did, that would be crazy, you know, like $100,000 for a video. That's, I don't know, it just blows my mind.
Is the governance token, is that live? Is that available on a chain? Is it like Pancake Swap, Uniswap, or is that still in the works too? Or are you still doing seed funding for that?
Yeah, so in terms of timeline, we actually were planning to do a pre-token sale so people can start purchasing those tokens. The problem with that is we don't want to host it ourselves because, once again, like regulatory issues. And but by the way, we're doing everything like is DAOs and this whole like DeFi is a bit of a gray area in terms of regulation. But we're trying our best to make sure that everything we do, we're seeking legal advice. We're trying to keep on the right side of the gray area. We don't want to do anything that's going to come like, I don't know, biting us in the ass like a year or two down the track. So we're very conservative and cautious, which is why this has actually taken a year and a half. Like, if we wanted to launch it in half a year, we probably could have, but we wanted to make sure that everything's like above board. So one of the biggest issues at the moment is finding a third-party platform to raise funds on. We find that there's a lot of okay, so there's always a few trade-offs. Some of the very legitimate ones, they require a lot of there's a lot of rules. Like, one of the ones that we were thinking of using, which is probably the biggest one in the platform in the industry, in terms of launch pads, they have like three big rules. First of all, the seed sale price must be like, I think like less than has to be like less than 5x. Sorry, the public sale price has to be less than 5x the seed sale price. The other thing is they hold so this is the biggest like deal breaker. They hold your funds until you launch, and if your trading price falls below the public sale price within the first 24 hours, they offer the customers a refund. And to me, that's like, well, like, fair enough if we have funding, but we need the funding to build a product. So like this is kind of like doesn't really make sense for us, because I guess they're more suited for big, like, well-funded projects that want exposure because they have a massive community. Other product like launch pads, they have kind of like, it's too tied in with their own token. So they have like VIP tiers, and only their VIPs can buy our token first. But we already have a community that wants to buy our own token. We don't want to force our community to buy some random third-party token so they can buy our token. It's just, yeah, too hard. We had another launch pad that we were working with, but they actually went out of business. So apparently, what we're looking for is very not many other people are looking for. We don't need too much exposure at this point. We don't want to be paying for a whole bunch of exposure, and we don't want to tie our token in with another tokenomics. We just want like a simple protocol that, it's like charges us a fee to list our token, so they can be basically the like, not issuers of the token per se, but basically they can be the hosts of the token sale, which we can't find anyone like that, So we basically put that on hold for now, but we do plan on launching the public sale in Q3, so before the end of October. Before the end of September. Yeah. So, if people do want to become like a part of the Aqualis community, you can already simply just join our Discord. We have a Splinterlands guild. and we're relatively getting more and more active in there, which is I personally really love to see. And once the token sale comes live, I'm sure I'll be hitting up town halls and trying to market that as much as possible.
Awesome, man. Some really cool stuff coming down the pipeline for you guys. You got to be super excited. 18 months is no small investment of time in watching this thing grow. It's got to be an exciting time for you. What's the what's the best way to keep our ear to the ground in terms of what's happening with Aqualis? Is that via the Discord, or track you guys on just hop into your website periodically? Do you guys have Peak D, YouTube, 3Speak, any sort of social community outreach on any of the social media platforms? What's the best way to keep in touch and know what's what with Aqualis?
Yeah. So the best way is definitely our Discord. We're definitely most active there. We also do have the Peak D blog. We also have a blog on Medium. And we tried to keep that relatively active at the start, but it was quite a big time sink, to be honest. So we basically just do monthly updates on there now. In terms of like activity, 90% of the activity we have is just Splinterlands related because we have our guild. Everything else we've been, I guess, developing quite like stealthily, I guess. There's not a lot to announce, and I don't want to spam people with notifications on announcements that aren't all that relevant. The first announcement that we're probably going to have in like months, that's not just a monthly update, is the Splinterlands marketplace that we're going to be launching soon. And to keep up to date to that, yeah, Discord is definitely the best place. I'm fairly active on Discord, so people can even like message me personally if they have any questions about Aqualis. And you can keep interact with the community on our Discord as well. We have a fairly getting more and more active community on there, which is great to see. J-Ron, I'm not sure if you know Chris. He's one of he kind of helps us with the marketing side of things. So if you guys watch Science TV, you may have already heard of Aqualis. I gave him a bunch of Chaos Legion packs for him to give away, and usually the prerequisite is just join the Aqualis Discord. So yeah, that's also definitely helped with growing our community. But yeah, so back to the original question, best way to keep in touch is just our Discord, and yeah, Peak D, monthly updates if that's all you want is a monthly update. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, you have to toss us the Discord link and we in the chat maybe, and we can make sure we put that in our Peak D article and our show notes and stuff.
Yeah,
for anyone who's not in it already. Yeah, that'd be great. I'm interested to hear about your governance proposals for Splinterlands. The market fee one, I guess they're both market fees, right? They're one to give market fees to the DAO, one to burn. So can you tell me kind of like your thought process behind that and kind of your experience with getting those out there and trying to market and push for those?
Yeah, so I guess it was a bit of an ordeal trying to get the first one. So the first one, I had been, I guess, accused by a few people of certain things, like, having like ulterior motives or like trying to push something that's bad for the community. There were a lot of, I guess, things directed personally, which I guess try to avoid for proposals. But no, like it was quite a big time sink, replying to everything. I don't know if you've had a look at the Pick D post, but I have a lot of, I guess, replies on there. Discord, a lot of replies, a lot of DMs. It was like, I don't know, it was taking like probably like 10 hours a day for the first few days. Like honestly, like it was a massive time sink.
So the first one, just to clarify too, so for people in case they don't know, the first one was the to change the market fees to include a royalty that goes to the DAO, right?
Yeah, so the main thing was actually the biggest, like the most contentious issue. I feel like, at least like the most vocal issue, was the fact that I wanted to add a portion of the fee to go to a listing. The main reason I wanted this is because I'm primarily a lister myself. All of my buys are done like peer-to-peer. I only really list cards on Marketplace. I rarely buy cards on Marketplace. And one thing I've found is that over the years, listing tools have become a little bit neglected. I spoke to Jarvi about it, and he admitted that they don't really concentrate much on listing tools because there's no revenue to be made there. So I had certain ideas that I wanted to be implemented for listings, but it just wasn't there because no one could be bothered developing it. So I thought if we add a incentive for listing, then this way we could potentially see a lot more tools for it, and make like lives of people who want to list cards a bit easier. But because of that portion of the proposal, since peak monsters have a very obvious advantage in that market segment, I was basically accused of having ulterior motives, being a large, I don't know, peak monsters shareholder or something, which I'm actually not. And there were a lot of I guess, what do you call, like conspiracies almost, like just that there were some ulterior motives behind the proposal, which was honestly quite tiring. So I amended the proposal before it went into the live voting. I initially split it 2%, 2%, 2% between listing, buying, and the DAO. Before it went live, I changed it to 0.5% to listing. So instead of changing the status quo completely, I wanted to basically set a precedent that listing is also an important part that should be rewarded. However, that didn't pass ultimately. It was relatively close. I think it was 63, 64% or something. But the difference between 64 and 67 is actually quite high. You need like 10 million, 20 million extra power to vote for it to actually swing that 2-3%. So it really wasn't that close, to be honest. And then the second one, I also said, I wasn't going to give up. Like the main purpose of the proposal wasn't to add that listing component. The main purpose was still to basically decrease DEC supply. And I had a lot of feedback as well, regarding the actual DAO. There were a lot of people who, I guess, didn't really trust the DAO to spend the money properly, which I guess is a bit of a commentary on our community. We don't even trust ourselves.
We are the DAO, right? I mean, as the people can
exactly. So I don't know, the proposal to burn it instead of going to the DAO, that was much, I guess, much well received. A lot of people kind of either indifferent or prefer burn. Dave McCoy was actually one of the only people who preferred going to the DAO, since I guess he's very optimistic. He loves the community, so makes sense. But the second proposal ended up passing by quite a lot, and that I think honestly is massive. It's at the moment we're in a bit of a bear market. There's not a lot of volume, but already we have burned over 17 million DECs since the proposal has passed. And to me, that's a massive DEC sink just over time. Based on the performance of the markets, we're going to have a permanent effect. To me, burning is a very good tool to do pretty much a lot of things, because it gives a permanent effect on temporary things. If a token, for example, goes up to 10x's and then in a few months loses 90% and it's back to its original price or something like that, if there's no burn involved, it's just back to its original price. But if we think about it, tokens in terms of market cap, and there are burns involved, even if it goes back to its original market cap, the price would actually still be higher purely because of burns. And that basically gives a permanent effect to temporary things. Price is temporary, right? 1 minute SPS could be 2 cents, could be $1 in a day, and then back to 0.1 cents in another day. Very hypothetical. Don't think that'll ever happen, but it could. And if that does happen, there's no long-term gain or loss from any of this price action. Whereas right now, any sort of noticeable volume in terms of the card or asset markets will have a permanent effect in terms of DEC, and therefore will have a permanent effect in terms of SPS. So that's kind of where this idea comes from. It's giving temporary, volume is temporary, but it's giving temporary events a permanent mark in the ecosystem. Yeah,
that's great. I've never heard it really summarized or explained, succinctly and that well, because so many people have this impression too, where like, oh, we burned it, so the price value has to go up. It's like, well, no, there's, people still have to be willing to pay a certain price for it to go up.
Exactly.
But to think about it that way, where, once it does go up, even if it starts to go back down, it goes back to the original market cap, the value will still be higher because of that burn. So
Exactly.
no, that's
Yes.
brilliant. I appreciate that. That's I've never quite thought of it. Like I understood it in those terms, but like never heard it articulated so well. So yeah, thanks.
Thank
No,
you.
I appreciate that. See, you could be an influencer, man. I think you do have the chance.
But I think honestly, I think I'm too logical. Influencers need that like kind of emotional hype side, which I just can't do. Like I feel like a snake oil salesman, or whatever you call it, whatever. It's like shilling stuff. I just don't have it in me.
Nice. Yeah. I wonder too, real quick, because and maybe I'm just not seeing this right, but there's a lot of SPS proposals that it seems like you do not vote on.
Yeah.
And you have quite a large SPS stake. So what is it? Just, hey, I don't have time to look at all these and to really dive into these, and I just don't want to vote with my bag without having done your due diligence, or are there things like, I just don't care about that, I want other people in the community to decide that? So kind of tell us what's your thinking behind whether you vote for something and how you vote.
Yeah, great question actually, because you're not the first person to ask this. A lot of the time I might abstain purely because, okay, so for example, the most recent one that passed was the liquidity pool rewards. I have a significant portion of liquidity pool funds. So it would, like, this proposal, obviously, like it's like I'm probably like one of the most heavily negatively impacted people. But at the same time, all of the pros that the original poster listed, I couldn't refute them. So I don't really want to vote against my self-interest, but at the same time, because voting for would be voting against my self-interest. But at the same time, I really can't justify voting no, because, as I said, like the proposal made sense. So that one I abstained, I guess, out of self-interest. And also, I was very closely monitoring it. I had a look at it pretty much like a few times a day. And my vote wasn't really going to do too much. Like towards the end, it might have actually swung it a little bit, because I know if I voted, a couple of others might have voted, and altogether might have been like 15 million power or so. So it might have done something towards the end, but at the same time, I really can't justify voting no for that one, so I just chose to abstain. Probably a bit easier. In terms of the other few of the other ones, it's just like when I don't have a clear opinion, and my vote doesn't actually change the outcome, I'll just abstain because it's easier. Because if I do vote, since, as you mentioned, my vote is relatively large, I'll always have people DMing me on Discord trying to change my mind. So I find it's just a bit easier to just abstain if I don't have a very strong opinion, and if my vote doesn't change anything. With the recent bot ones, I haven't voted, but I've also had people just kind of messaging me about like why I should vote yes, even though it seems like it's clearly going to pass. But I'm choosing to abstain purely because, like, the first one, I think I might just vote yes. Actually, it's very clearly going to pass, and I'm also very for it, so I might just vote yes. The second one, regarding like battle helpers and stuff, like banning that one, like I feel like it's impossible to enforce. Like that's the main thing. I feel like it's just like all of like the public ones like Xbot Battle Helper, they might stop servicing. But all that means is that the community will lose access to battle helpers. But I know that a lot of people have their own battle helpers that they were using prior. They have spreadsheets, they have like battle simulators, whatever. Like it's not going to stop the problem. It's just going to kind of concentrate the problem into a smaller population of people, which if that's the goal, I guess
the problem though, right? I mean, that's a very fancy way of saying reducing the problem, right? Concentrating to a smaller amount of people though, for this type of game in the community is, it makes it less. And I think there's kind of a difference where if you can do it yourself and you can do the work yourself, that's one thing, but then to offer it to people who are, maybe can pay for it or willing to pay for it, I think has maybe more of a negative impact. But that's me.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I can honestly see both sides of it. I'm just a little bit like, it's the enforceability of the private stuff. Like Xbot going down, like, I mean, I've never used it myself, even for brawls and stuff. I like the process of thinking about it. Even if it means I keep using the witch card with the my guildmates hate when I use it, and I'm determined to get one win, but I think I'm like 0 wins, 10 loss with it now. So,
is that the death card, the death bloodlust card, gladiator card? Or?
Yeah, that's the one.
Man, I got a guildmate who he gets that dragon summoner Delwyn.
Yeah.
And he just spams Delwyn in that card and just like destroys everyone. And because he got one gold foil. He and I are both in the gold foil brawls. I think he's in the gold foil all cards. So he gets the Delwyn and he just spams that, and he's like, maybe one loss every brawl. So
mate, like I wish I could use Delwyn, but the problem is I'm in the alpha only phrase.
Okay.
It's honestly a terrible card because I can't buff its magic in any way. But hey, if it like, I just love that card though, so I just keep trying to use it. But yeah, anyway, bit of a tangent there. In terms of the Xbox stuff, like I feel like it's like if everyone has access to it, it's almost like fair. You can choose to use it or not use it. I agree, it exacerbates the problem because more people are using it. But if we kind of turn it to only people who can access it themselves can use it, it becomes much like in terms of like the severity. I personally feel like it becomes more of a problem because if battle helpers are as good as people think they are, and they can make like fairly optimized teams with statistically higher win rates than humans, that means that leaderboard positions would statistically favor more towards people who have those private ones. Whereas right now, if everyone has access to it, like everyone could fight for those leaderboard positions. Whereas if only certain people have access to it, then only they can potentially fight for those leaderboard positions. But like as I mentioned earlier, I don't actually play personally like competitively in ranked. So I don't know if any of this is even true, to be honest, which is also another reason why I've just abstained from both of them, because I don't feel like I have enough knowledge of the area. But one thing I would like to add, though, is that I know personally a few people from my guild, some of our best players. Like we're a very supportive guild. We don't have any like whales or anything in here. We pay our players every like all the gold foil phrase. We pay them DECs for rentals. If anyone does well in brawls, we give them Archimus bears. I've still got like 80,000 of those if anyone wants to buy some. And we also pay Chaos Legion packs for if anybody goes undefeated in brawls. So we're a very supportive guild. We try to watch our players grow. But a problem with that is that a lot of these players are manual players, and they've quit because they just hate versing bots like 20 times in a row. They hate losing to battle helpers, and they just don't find it fun anymore. So I know this proposal will definitely get a lot of them on board. Actually, one of our old guild members have actually come back to play modern purely because there's no more bots in it, and he said he's finding it a lot more fun, and he's also getting like something crazy like 2.5 SPS in silver, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like let me quickly check the screenshot, but yeah, he got like a lot. Yeah, 2.5. He actually got 4 SPS in silver, but that was with a 140% reward bonus from the like boosts and stuff. But yeah, 4 SPS in silver modern, that's crazy. Like that's like higher than diamond. Yeah.
Yeah, man, I certainly can hear kind of both sides of the argument regarding the battle helper stuff. We had Siler on a couple of episodes back, and he kind of had the prediction that, and maybe you can correct my stat quoting here if I'm missing the mark, but I think he said something along the lines of 90% of bots in modern will disappear, and the big bot makers, the public bot makers are going to play ball, and it feels like I should attest to that. I feel, similar to your guildmate that came back and is, feeling reinvigorated about the modern ranked battlefield. It's fun again for the first time in a real time. But I'm wondering if, you're absolutely right. I've heard whispers of something along the lines of, if battle helper gets outright banned, we're just going to that's going to serve as the catalyst for, kind of a black market under the table arms race for private battle helpers. And,
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, it's just going to be a matter of time before that makes its way back into the game. And, certain groups of folks start having that I think it's very clear that Battle Helper provides a significant advantage over folks not using it. But yeah, I guess we'll see. I'm curious, Simon. So I want to take a step back. We're talking a little bit about DAO proposals. You've obviously implemented governance token and DAO at Aqualis. Kind of bigger picture, your conviction, your degree of conviction towards a DAO functioning as it should, being able to self-govern, is your conviction there? I mean, has seeing the proposals and the response to proposals and the way that the community interacts with said proposals, has that shaken that at all? Like long term, are you still bullish on the system of a DAO?
Yeah, that's a great question as well, actually. I think personally, I think DAOs are experimental. I think that's like the underlying like caveat that people have to kind of put into perspective. I don't think DAOs are mature at all. I don't think that it's ready to be taking over corporate governance around the world or anything. I think it has a lot of potential though. I think that once we actually kind of perfected one, okay, so first of all, it's a decentralized ecosystem. I'm involved in a couple of other DAOs as well in terms of like proposals and forums and whatnot. And I find that Splinterlands by far has the most distributed like SPS, like governance token. Sorry. So yeah, in terms of the actual governance token, I think it's incredibly important that once, like before a DAO is fully functional, you need to make sure that there's no one guy that's sitting with like 35% of the votes or something. Because pretty much every other DAO, we have some kind of like VC or one kind of like some kind of like whale investor with just like because not everyone votes, so they can pretty much single-handedly swing any vote purely because they have so much stake. And I don't think that's healthy for any DAO. The biggest stakeholder on Splinterlands that actually votes is Vugtis, and he has like 1 point something % of the total staked amount. And I think that's incredibly healthy. Like I think Splinterlands, like believe it or not, is probably one of the most mature DAOs in the ecosystem. Even the bigger DAOs like Pancake and stuff, like they have massive stakeholders with big votes that swing votes. I think they have one guy with like 10% or something. So it's not like, yeah, I guess like I have a lot of hope for it. For Aqualis, we basically implemented in phases. We have something called a decentralization upgrade through basically certain periods of time. At the start, we're going to be using the DAO as a decision-making kind of tool. We're not going to allow users to have proposals, and proposal like endings are not going to be binding. For example, if we put up a DAO vote that says, I don't know, should we sell some certain asset at some price? And then everyone's like, yes, we may decide actually in 2 months, like, oh, actually, this is a bad time. We're not going to do it. We're going to use it more as a decision-making tool at the start. Once we feel like Aqualis is a bit more mature, what we're going to do is we're going to move towards binding proposals. So we're going to be a lot more careful in what we write. And of course, like by binding, we still kind of like, have Splinterlands as well. Like, it's binding, but they also still have final say, right? Like they also, like if something like that gets passed, I'm pretty sure Splinterlands has the final say to say, actually, we're not going to implement that. But in terms of binding, we're going to make sure that we're going to have a really good reason if we ever not vote or not implement anything. And then later on, we want to make sure that it's kind of like fully decentralized, right? Like we want to make sure that there's like the ultimate goal. Like this is obviously like a step-by-step thing. We're not just going to go from what I mentioned previously to this. But the ultimate goal is we're going to have like a treasury management system automated so people can get grants for developing as long as it passes. This is very dangerous, by the way, in terms of like attacks. There's been a lot of DAO attacks that's primarily like based around treasury management systems. So we want to implement that as late as possible. We also want to make sure that us as team members, we don't have like the ultimate say in anything in the future. We are basically contracted by the DAO to provide a service at any point in time. If the DAO votes for us to be taken off, then we're off. If the DAO votes for anyone else to be put on, then they can be put on. So that is kind of like the ultimate vision we have for what a DAO should look like. It's pretty much Splinterlands DAO as well. Splinterlands Corporation, like the actual LLC. They would be a service provider that's contracted by the DAO. The DAO would pay them to provide a service, not the other way around. Like not, Splinterlands won't control the DAO will control what Splinterlands does. So that's kind of the goal for Splinterlands from my understanding. And that's also kind of the goal for Aqualis and what I believe a fully functional, like mature DAO would look like. Because since like there's no, like, it's a DAO, right? It's in its name. It's decentralized and autonomous. There shouldn't be some kind of set central entity that has control. All of it should be like voted on or proposed by the community in a decentralized way. So that's kind of like my vision for it. I believe that it's possible, this could be a thing, but it takes a lot of time, a lot of stakeholders, like a very well distributed governance token before it can actually take place. And at the end of the day, right, we've seen it here in Splinterlands as well. Like it's people vote not always in the best interest of everything. People vote in the best interest of themselves. It's like, human nature. Like you can't really blame anyone for it. But that's going to be one of the biggest potential setbacks I see for any kind of DAO system is that, like, there might be something that could, objectively give a better expected value for like the valuation of a DAO, but there might, some people might be negatively impacted by it. So, they might just vote no with their stakes purely because they're personally negatively impacted. So yeah, that's kind of one of the biggest setbacks I can see with like the whole DAO mechanism.
Interesting. How about like DAO funding in the future? Once the airdrop kind of ends for DAO to be able to, fund and provide rewards for these liquidity pools. Like, how important is it, do you think, for the DAO to be able to continue that? Do you think we should, some people say, well, we could just move to a fee-based system for the liquidity pools. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, so in terms of the liquidity pools, personally, I think that we aren't taking advantage because a lot of there are lots of tokens out there, right? And they all have liquidity pools, right? And we aren't taking advantage of third-party grants enough. For example, like pancake swap multipliers or sushi swap multipliers, etc. Most of our liquidity comes from internal incentives like the SPS airdrop. So yeah, no, like I feel like it's like there's definitely a lot of room for additional third-party grants. There's also additional room for just simply increasing the fee. So I believe personally, once the incentives end, and like it's not going to be like we're out of liquidity or anything. Like I don't think the DAO needs to provide the liquidity. We have a lot of different options. The DAO could, I guess, because a lot of the third-party incentives you need to pay a fee for, but they kind of like it's like a perpetuity. So in my opinion, it's kind of worth it. You could do that, or we could actually simply move to the V3 model. So if we use the V3 model, liquidity providers are incredibly incentivized to provide liquidity over certain ranges because of the high trading fees. We could be using one of the 1% fee pools. If we do, then traders will, of course, suffer a higher fee. But if we're using a 1% pool, like it should be like it should act like the amount of APR, like the amount of rewards, should actually be higher than the current SPS emissions if we use a V3 pool at 1%. So honestly, I'm not worried about the emissions ending. The only thing that I was a little bit worried about was the actual ranked rewards ending. I feel like once that ends, it could be like game over. But with the proposal that I've put through with the market fees, 2% getting burned, Holazor actually did some maths and basically said like that could like well and truly be used to fund the ranked rewards. If we and like kind of like developed like a system in my mind. It's very similar to what we have now. X amount of SPS is added per block, right? And then you get reward shares, and after I think it's a 15-week average, you get SPS based on your reward shares of the pool and the amount of SPS in the pool. So what we can do is, instead of adding like a fixed amount per block, we can just simply transfer 2% of all market fees to a pool of DECs. So users will earn DECs instead of SPS for ranked rewards. And the rewards will be very similar to what we have now. And in the future, if the game, like, once Lands comes out, I foresee a lot more volume. So with more volume, there's more rewards, and we could become potentially a self-sustaining economy without the need of any inflationary tokenomics. Like, that's actually what Aqualis aims to do as well. At the start, we'll offer incentives, of course, to deposit, but like 100% of our public sale goes towards protocol earned liquidity. So we plan to power our own liquidity pools, so we don't have to rely on these kind of inflationary tokenomics to keep going, because it's not sustainable. Like, if SPS prints forever, that's not sustainable. Like, before we finish printing, we need to come up with ways to kind of prepare for it, which is, I guess, your question. But yeah, like liquidity pools, I feel like that's fine. Like, there will always be a way for liquidity pools to work. It's just, I guess, it's in its like nature. The pool, like the actual DAO itself, has a fair bit of funding as well. So people say, like, the DAO can capitalize itself to fund it, which I think, that's fair enough. That's one way to go about it. Definitely, that's the Aqualis way. We're doing that as well. And the other way is simply just to use a different structure. Use the PancakeSwap V3 1% pool instead of the V2, which is default 0.25%.
That's interesting. I've wondered that too about, ranked. What do we do once we're, really earning SPS is no longer the option in ranked? Would they move back to DEC? And that's kind of what I, my initially thought would, you can just go back to DEC, but the team seems so, hell bent on getting DC to peg and keeping it there. Do you think moving back to DEC for rank rewards, is that gonna, would they do that, or would they be worried about what we've gotten? Hopefully at that time, DEC has been up to peg, and maybe we get the flywheel going, which is probably going to be my next follow up. But what are your thoughts of moving back to DEC for rewards? Is that gonna would that affect DEC's peg in a negative way, and would they be hesitant to try to do that?
Yeah, so I guess this is planning for the future. But the team has been, I guess, very against moving back to DEC rewards, purely because they're under an assumption of printing DECs. So with this method of using volume or market fees, we're not actually printing anymore. We're not putting more DECs into the circulating supply. We're simply removing one of the burn mechanisms. But the idea is, in maybe, I don't know, actually don't even know how many years until the rewards run out. But in however many years, the idea is that there should be enough digital products that are backing DEC, that there's enough demand there, there's enough demand in lands, there's enough demand like everywhere else to keep the DEC at peg. So we don't need these sort of burning mechanisms anymore. Because right now, the reason we've implemented so many burning mechanisms is simply because of the oversupply of DEC. Once we get to a stage where the burning mechanism has done its job, and Lands has done its job of basically absorbing a large amount of the oversupply, because with Lands, right, it's absorbing the DECs. It's not actually it's absorbing it, taking out of circulation temporarily, and burning is, of course, permanent. But once Lands comes out, I believe that we won't need as many permanent burns. It's still, of course, good to have it. It's good to have until we absolutely need it for something else. But once ranked rewards end, there is a gap there, and I believe the gap could be very, very nicely filled with the current 2% DEC market fees that's going to burn. That could very simply go towards ranked rewards. I think that. I mean, that's Holozor's idea, and I think it's really brilliant because doing the maths, it seems to add up quite well. So I think that's definitely one reason why it's okay to use DECs, because it's just ultimately it's not creating more. I guess with the context of the team saying they don't want to do that, it's because that, of course, if we're just printing more DEC, I'm also personally very against that. But if we're simply redistributing current supply, then I think that's fine. And it creates a more sustainable kind of way. Because ultimately, I hope that ideally there's just no more token inflation anywhere, right? If we become a deflationary token, if SPS is deflationary, that would be insane. That's the goal of like a lot of tokens. Even I mentioned Pancake again. Like there, if you have a look at some of their recent proposals, you have a look at some of their recent announcements, it's all towards building a deflationary token. And there's a lot of other tokens recently that are also deflationary now from just burning more than their emissions. And I believe that that's actually quite key to becoming sustainable. If you can find sustainable ways, like without like if you're just using protocol-owned liquidity to buy back your own token, then that's obviously not sustainable. But if we can find sustainable ways to generate revenue and without like impacting token inflation, like that's pretty much how we can keep this game running for like I don't know 100 years into the future. Like yeah.
Hep, you had an immediate follow up pop in your head. You want to go ahead and spill the beans on that?
Well, yeah, no. So I was just saying, we hear everybody talk a lot about the flywheel.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I want to get your take on it because, I feel like you're definitely better to ask about this than certainly I am. I'll tell you that much. So, what's your take on the flywheel and land and getting DEC to peg and what effects it could have on SPS?
Yeah. So sorry. In regards to that, I feel like the flywheel is actually like as people say, as soon as we reach peg, people start burning SPS, etc. I feel like we're actually a lot further away than what we think we are. Because it's not like it's not that easy. Like once we get to the point where the DEC is near peg, we're going to obviously have a lot of sellers, right? Like I myself will sell a lot of my DEC holdings once we get close to peg, on the assumption that my upside is now limited and my downside is of course higher than ever. So the idea is that if DECs reach peg, I'm personally quite happy because I still have SPS. SPS will start getting burned. If DECs don't reach peg, I can buy back DECs. So I personally feel like we're going to have a few cycles of DECs getting close to peg, falling back down, close to peg, falling down. We're also going to see lots of botnets burning their reward cards, burning Gladius cards, just a bunch of extra token DEC token inflation that we're not seeing right now purely because it's not at peg. So yeah, no, I definitely feel like it's a long shot. Like we're a long way away. Lands 1.5, people say that's going to be like a massive absorption. I agree, but at the same time, I personally don't feel like all of the lands will be utilized from the start, because it is like a cost benefit analysis, right? If like only one piece of land in the entire ecosystem is being used, then obviously that piece of land is going to earn massive rewards. But if all 150,000 or maybe 135,000, however many are going to be claimed, if all of those are going to be used, it's simply not going to be worth it. Like I haven't done the maths, I'll be honest, but just quickly looking at the numbers, I'm like 90% sure that if we use all lands from the very start, it's like diminishing returns, right? The more land you use, the more like the less return for the next piece of land. So I don't think we're going to see all lands that are claimed being utilized, which means I don't feel like the DEC sink is going to be as high as people think. By all means, we could still see it reach peg, some SPS burned, but I don't feel like it's going to be like a sustainable, we are at peg now forever kind of situation. So that's kind of what I feel about like the lands and everything. In terms of like in the long term, I think with all of these not incentives, but like all of these, I guess, features that are burning DECs, recently with the Rift Watchers going towards the DAO instead of being priced in SPS going towards the DAO. So all of this is just essentially taking DEC out of circulation. I'm very confident that we will eventually reach peg. Where it like where's that? It could be like a year or two. It's probably a while away. And it honestly like it heavily depends on a few things. Like if the markets like we enter another bull cycle soon, I feel like we could reach like stay at peg as soon as we reach the bull cycle, simply because if lands is producing SPS, bull cycle means SPS is going up more, which means utilization of the lands would increase, which means more DEC would be, I guess, deposited onto lands. That would mean higher, I guess, use case for DEC, we could see a peg within the next like 6 months if there's a bull cycle. I think there's a lot of variables, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. It's hard to say, but I don't think it's as close as just simply lands 1.5 comes, we're just back at peg forever. Like we might see a little bit of SPS burn in the short term because people might need DECs in the short term, but I guess personally I don't think that it's like sustainable. I don't think it's like gonna stay at peg for a long-term period. It might just be a short-term thing once lands come out.
Yeah, and you mentioned the bots farms that are burning, the Gladius and other rewards cards, and I that's something I hadn't even thought of before, but I think that kind of happened. We saw that recently, right, where all of a sudden there's a bunch more DC in the system. I was like, well, where did this come from? And it's like, oh, well, a bot farm's getting out and they're just burning cards to get the DC to sell because they can't transfer those cards.
Yeah, exactly right.
Well, we've long heard DEC being hailed as a product-backed stablecoin. With the advent of lands, quickly coming, we're getting it supposedly in the next couple of weeks, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. And I certainly do expect a little bit of a pump. I'm hesitant to say, knock on wood. Hesitant to say that, we're going to achieve peg and stay there. But, especially with the Roof Watchers burn, it looks like I haven't checked, but I think that passed. And therefore that's one less product on the shelves that is backed by or supporting the DEC at peg. Do you suppose is the correct move on a moving forward basis, with Rebellion being the next set that is confirmed to come out, and potentially this movie studio mini set still kind of TBD? Do you expect the team to, from the onset of these sales, to offer the product as in exchange for DEC to help kind of maintain that peg, achieve and maintain?
Well, I'll be honest, it's very hard to say in terms of like the actual product-based side of things. I personally feel, okay, so for a bit of context, like I am actually working with Matt on lands design at the moment as well. So I've signed like an NDA, so I can't really talk about lands like 2.0 that much. But in terms of my personal vision, like I do want to have more and more products coming out of lands. DEC is basically, it's a product-backed stablecoin. More and more of that I personally want and envision is more of that will be coming from lands, right? So like, production of items and spells, etc. And yeah, like as like you mentioned, like a really good point. I honestly haven't really thought about this, so I'm trying to think about it as I speak. So in terms of like the product-based mechanism, I guess it's like personally, I guess it's hard to actually like think about in terms of like a purely product-based mechanism, because that would imply there's enough demand for the products at that price that anything below that price is seen as a discount. To me, it hasn't really been that case. I like to think about DECs more as like a utility token that has a relatively small price range. I personally think it has utility in the fact that it gets burned, and there's it's like, I guess there's utility and like value in the fact that there are certain things at the moment, at least, that are reducing a circulating supply. So I feel like that's what's kind of bringing it more to the actual peg, more so than it's a need. Like, because historically, even with Chaos Legion, Untamed, whatever, none of that DEC is actually taken out of circulating supply, right? That's actually given to the team, and then the team pays that out as revenue when there are credit purchases, for example. So it's not like the like tokens are just like magically disappear once they've been used for Chaos Legion, for example. And the same with Rebellion. That's going to be a product offered by the team. So unless we get enough demand where the fair value of a pack is, I don't know, like $3 or $4 or whatever Rebellion's going to be, and then anything below that, we see it as a discount, which historically, as I mentioned, like that hasn't been the case. Like, we never really saw Chaos Legion packs as I don't even remember how much it was, but it's like we never saw it as a discount when DCs were below peg. We just saw it as like, okay, that's the price of Chaos Legion packs now. It's not a discount. It's just is what it is. So in terms of product backed, it's a very ambitious goal in my opinion. It's possible if we get enough demand, but in terms of if it's actually worked historically, I don't think it's actually worked historically. For me at least, the key right now is reducing circulating supply. I think that's really the only way for us to bring it back to peg and get it to stay there in the long term. If we get enough demand in the future, it could, the product based side of things could be very very valuable as well, especially if we get more products that can be bought with DECs, which is one thing that I'm actually thinking about for Aqualis. If we ever do some kind of sale in the future, maybe we'll accept DECs at the peg value. That could be very powerful for the Splinterlands economy. If we can see more of that being used, even maybe real world products, hey, if I can go to the store and buy a car with DCs, and taken at the peg value, then of course, then, that's there's demand for that. But if it's purely, Splinterlands products, I don't, at least at this stage, I don't see it being a massive, contributor to the peg, because as I mentioned, people don't see it as a discount, people just see it as the current price. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, as we're kind of winding down here, we're creeping up on the 2-hour mark, Simon. I'm curious, so you mentioned you're an avid gamer. You love playing video games, but Splinterlands isn't your jam. Is Praetoria your speed? It sounds like, as we've gotten to know you a little bit over the last couple of hours, it sounds like, that resource management aspect of gameplay is certainly more your wheelhouse. Is land where you plan to retire? Are you going to tick the boxes for your parents and, hey, I'm buying a farm? It's just it's not in Australia, it's in Praetoria. Is that kind of your longer term game plan? Is retire on land?
Yeah, I guess so. More or less. I feel like it's very just a bit of I guess context there as well. I feel like lands is very revolutionary. It's giving the production to the players. My goal is for everything to be from lands, cards, items, spells, whatever you can think of that that people need in the future will come from lands. That's my ultimate vision, and it's something that I've been pushing for since literally 2019, when lands first came out. I've been trying to say that everything should come from lands, right? People say oh, where does the company earn revenue from? Well, it could be very easy, to be honest, because you can produce packs from lands. Packs cost a fee to produce potentially, or resources to produce. A portion of that could go to the company. There's a lot of different avenues that the company could earn revenue. But that aside, basically lands is something that I'm very, very looking forward to actually getting a hands-on with. As I mentioned, I have a comp sci background, but I have no idea how anything works. I feel like having tools is going to be the key to being successful in managing lands. So I might actually have to start asking ChatGPT how to code me some land management tools. And yeah, I guess ultimately, I feel like lands has a lot of potential here. It's the first, I think, I don't know, it might, other games might have done it, but I feel like it's the first of its kind. It's giving production and full ownership of assets to the players. It's like if Blizzard, instead of selling Hearthstone packs, players created the Hearthstone packs and sold it to each other. That's no one's ever heard of that, right? It's crazy. I feel like that's a huge selling point for the game in the future. Is if it's completely community and player owned. It could be it's a massive unique selling point of this game, and I feel like there will be copycats of it as well in the future. But for now, having first movers advantage, it could be really massive if done well. And on a bit of a tangent, personally, I've also loved PvE. I feel like that should hopefully be part of lands. Maybe not this year, maybe not even next year. But it's something that I have been also pushing since 2019. Actually, I've always wanted PvE because, in my opinion, how this game should have worked from day one, basically, is ranked should be skill based. People need to have the cards, of course, but of course you also need the skill to play competitively and do well in leaderboards. PvE shouldn't be just money based. Like, you have enough cards, you just, I don't know, send in an army of your cards and go kill a boss monster, right? Like, you don't really need skill for that. You just need lots of money. And traditionally, like mobile games, whatever, like, you can do very like competitive PvE or co-op PvE, and that brings a lot of like incentive to sink money, if that makes sense. And I feel like that's something that's been missing since day one. I'm hoping Lands can eventually bring that out. I have a lot of ideas in regards to how it could work, but then again, everyone has a lot of ideas about how everything could work. So, that's not really, what brings us forward. But yeah, no, that's pretty much my idea, like for Lands, that I can talk about, since I have did sign like an NDA, so I can't really talk about specifics.
I appreciate that, man. Well, as soon as that NDA is about to expire, I hope that you'll reach out and we can get you back on and get the full disclosure here on the People's Guild. Yeah, it's certainly a revolutionary concept, right? Handing the keys of the kingdom over to the community and moving into as much of a decentralized fashion as possible. It's exciting and it's so cool to be on the roller coaster with the pioneers of said revolutionary concept. And yeah, man. All right. Well, Hep, any last thoughts, comments, questions?
Well, I just wondered, I wanted to ask, I feel like we've asked, everybody we've had on here, when, Land, like how many plots do you have, and how many do you think you'll be able to kind of put, if, you don't have to answer, but how many do you think you're going to be able to put into production, by the end of August? I know you said, having, even if you have a bunch, the more you have, maybe if everybody's working them, then, the rewards are going to go down for everybody. But so what's your game plan on Land?
Well, okay, so I'm just searching. So I currently have 2,096 claimed deeds, and I still have a tract and some plots that I haven't claimed. So I'm happy answering that, because anyone can just look at my account if they really wanted to know. But I guess the ultimate game plan is just utilize my best plots first. I did claim a whole region, so I want to utilize that region first. If I can utilize all the best plots in that region, I'm going to start going, bit by bit in the other regions. I think for me, it is a bit of like a optimization kind of thing. I don't think I'll use all 2,096 of my plots. I think I have a lot of Roonies, by the way. I was the largest holder of Roonies, but recently someone overtook me, and I know, keen to find out who, if you're listening. They actually have 100 Roonies, which is crazy. But yeah, so I don't have enough Roonies to work all my plots, obviously. So I want to kind of concentrate a lot of my power into a few. With the proposal that passed that limits to 100k production points per plot, that affected my game plan, quite heavily. So obviously need to kind of move across a few different plots now, rather than just concentrating like 500,000 production points on one, and then just fully maxing it out with I don't know, legendary totems, Rooney, legendary title, whatever. So yeah, no, I guess the plan is just to utilize my best plots first, and then keep seeing if it's worth to use more and more. I don't have too much DCs. I think I only have I don't know, 70 or 80 mil in LPs at the moment. I sold a lot of my DCs back when, I forgot what caused the first pump, a while ago, back when it was around 9 something, I think it was 90% to peg or something, before the burning event. I sold all of my DCs at 9 something, and then I started accumulating again, but then I burned 60-70% of my DCs again for the burn event, which I guess I don't really regret. I wish I had more though. And ever since then, I've just been selling stuff, I guess, packs, cards, and also just been buying DCs with USDT and BUSD or whatever, because I feel it's at 70% or 75%, it's incredibly undervalued. I've just been buying it every now and then. Every time I look at it, if it's below 8, I'll buy $1,000 worth or something. So that's also helped me accumulate a bit more for Lands. And yeah, that's pretty much my plan for lands at this stage, I guess. See how things work. And also one other thing, I feel like the first day is going to be massive. Like that's when people are like, that's the biggest opportunity. Because that's when everyone's like scrambling for resources, where it'd be like grains, time crystals, DCs. We're going to see massive volume, massive volatility. Very excited to see exactly what's going to happen. I'm just praying that it launches at a time that's comfortable for my time zone, but I have a feeling it's going to launch at 2 a.m. So going to be a few sleepless nights, probably like all-nighters, I mean. But yeah, we'll see.
I was just thinking the same thing. Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing. I feel like the last couple of big releases that have been time sensitive have been like 1, 2, 3 in the morning my time.
Yeah.
And it's looking like, I mentioned to you guys off air that I'll be in Australia, presumably when land drops. So I might be pulling sleepless nights in Eastern Australia as well, trying to get my land situated as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Make sure you bring your keys with you.
Oh yeah. All right, Simon. Well, man, this has been an incredibly enjoyable last couple of hours. We really enjoy getting to know you and appreciate you dropping some insights and sharing your story. And for any listeners out there who are uninitiated to Aqualis and or Layer 2 Labs, it's AQUALIS.io. Head over there, and I believe you said it was under the Launch Apps tab. You can start to check out the Splinterlands market. And I may have misheard you, but I think you said 70%, 70% cash back.
Wow. Yeah, that's right. So we're offering 70% cash back at the moment. And then, with the 30% we get, we plan to keep 100% of that within the Splinterlands ecosystem, at least for the time, like foreseeable future.
Beautiful. All right, man. Well, yeah, certainly appreciate the you come into the ecosystem and taking the initiative to burrow in like a tick, man. It's good to have minds like yours in the community, and appreciate you again for taking the time to hop on and have a good chat with us, man.
Yeah, no worries. And I mean, not going to get rid of me very easily. So also appreciate the opportunity to come on board. It's been a really enjoyable chat, as you mentioned. It's I had no idea it's already been like, how long is it? 2 hours? That's crazy. I haven't even had breakfast, but I'm not hungry. So, anyway, thanks for the opportunity to come, and hopefully I'll be back another time, because honestly, this was very enjoyable.
Yeah, loved it. Love to have you back, man. Absolutely.
Wonderful. All right, guys. Well, thank you for tuning in, and you have been listening to
The People's Guild.